Hey, welcome back to Impulse Audio. Today we're talking about the Dayton Audio DSP-408. This is a 4 in and 8 out channel DSP box. It represents a lot of value for what it can do, which is why I bought one for myself. I paid for this with my own money, got it in here and wanted to check it out. If you saw my video on the Dayton Audio 18-inch subwoofer, the Ultimax, you noticed I was not happy with my room response because I have a big spike at 60-ish hertz. So that's where this comes in to hopefully solve that problem. So why did I pick it? Well, I simply compared what was on the market. It offers a ton of value. It has the IOs that I'm looking for. That's 4 in and 8 out, analog inputs and outputs. And I looked at what the software can do. It doesn't have a ton, but it has kind of everything I need. So I thought it might hit the mark for as little as, I think, $170. So I was very happy with that and went ahead. So let's check it out. To start, let's take a look at the packaging. It comes with a manual, well, some safety instructions or something like that. I don't think there's too much detail in this. Also included is some connections. There's the power connector and a harness for speaker level inputs, as well as a USB cord, so you can hook it up to a PC. And then there's the unit. It's a nice black anodized aluminum box. It's actually very impressive. It's, solid. It feels like it's indestructible. All the ins and outs are nice and clean and look good. So I'm very happy with the way it looks, and it'll go nicely with all my gear, which is a total mess right now, but eventually when I have things organized the way I like, it'll be easy to implement this. It's got an RCA trigger for sensing RCAs. It's got a speaker level input trigger, and it's got just a remain on. Okay, to start my testing, I want to show you just a loopback on my sound card. This particular laptop I use has an in and out, like a headset and microphone input. So I'm able to loop it back, and you can see that my sound card does have a slight high pass on it, so I calibrated that out for this. Take a note at the 3 dB down point, which is a hair under 4 hertz. That's pretty typical for most electronics, I would say. Okay, then I just hooked this up. I put one side to my headset out on my laptop and the other side to my microphone in, and I can do a perfect loopback. You no longer get software in the packaging of stuff like this. You download it from the website, so that's what I proceeded to do here to get it running for my first time. And it's pretty basic software. I find it interesting that it starts at -20 on the master volume, so you're probably going to want to change that first thing. I played around with it, I admit, but my first order of business was to do a loopback measurement, so here we are. And you can see that there is quite a high pass filter on this thing, particularly below 10 hertz. The thing seems to tank. This is the first thing I did, and I'm very interested in ultra low frequencies. I run sealed subs so I can experience all the infrasonics, and so I was quite upset to see this. Most electronics are going to have a bit of a high pass, and they can compound, so every piece of electronics you add to the system makes it worse and worse. Well, you can see at like 3 decibels, we're 10 dB down. That's at 3 hertz. I mean, I know that's very low. 3 hertz is, basically the bottom. You can't get much more than that out of most systems, but that is, very attenuated at that point. Even 10 hertz, I mean, you're a couple dB down by that point. That's unfortunate in my opinion. Here's a loop back of my very cheap, like $250 Yamaha AVR, and you can see the 3 dB down point is 3 hertz. So this is much more normal. This is what I would expect. And so it just kind of gives you an idea of what I would normally expect from something like this. And that's a cheap AVR that costs barely more than this DSP. In fact, this AVR has almost as much DSP in it than this box does. So it's kind of disappointing to see. Here is a loopback distortion of my sound card. So we can compare the two and see that there is more distortion below 40 hertz using this DSP than there is without it. The rest of the bandwidth seems to be okay. Okay, at this point of the review, I wanted to note that I've had some time to play with the software. I've messed around with PEQ, shelves, slopes, delay, all that kind of stuff. And I gotta note, this software is very limiting. You kind of get what you pay for, of course, but this software has some very tight restrictions on what you can do, how much you can see. For instance, the frequency response curve, or better put, the transfer function response curve, is only 24 dB tall. Most of that is going to be in the minus space, so below zero, because you shouldn't be boosting a lot of things. And you can't see more than one channel at a time. So not that that's a deal breaker, but I just wanted to note that I'm feeling very limited by this software. So let's carry on. Let's explore that a little bit and see what we come up with. So yeah, let's just play around with some PEQ and different settings and see what we can come up with. I'll start by cranking up the master volume because I'm going to push this thing. You really shouldn't push EQ and things like that on a DSP above zero. Even in your AVR, you shouldn't do that because you stand a chance of clipping, but I'm going to do it and see what we get. So we'll just put in some typical cuts and boosts and play around a little bit and see what we come up with. And let's see how this measures. Oh, and you can see I got some clipping and Rue didn't like that, so it stopped the measurement. So I will go and turn things down a little bit because I obviously pushed it too far, but that's good to see. That's, I'm not going to fault the DSP for that. Absolutely not. That I pretty much called it. So anyways, let's turn things down a bit. We still are pushing boost past 0 dB, but let's try it now. Okay, completed the measurement. Well, other than that nasty roll off below 10 Hertz, it did what it was supposed to do. We got a high Q boost at 200 Hertz. We got our cut at 40 and our cut at 1000. We also have our low pass. Now let's look at distortion, because note that I didn't do anything below 40 Hertz. Okay, here's a little zoomed in look at the distortion. Look at the little peak at 200 Hertz. So again, I was pushing this above zero, so I should expect this. We get a little bit of distortion there. And even though we didn't do anything below 40 Hertz, in fact, we made a cut at 40 Hertz, distortion in the low end did seem to increase a little bit. Okay, so now that we've looked at PEQ, let's see what we can do with shelves. I think high shelves and low shelves are very useful. So first thing I'll do is I'll turn the master volume down because we're essentially going to boost. We got our shelf at 300-ish Hertz or whatever I programmed in there. Now we'll turn on a high shelf. Okay, and that worked as well. So I'm going to set it at 25 Hertz because I'm going to try to correct that roll off. Okay, and the turquoise line, you can see it somewhat corrects that roll off, but you do get a big bump at about 18 Hertz, which is probably welcome. But you've also sacrificed a lot of master volume to do this in a sense. So it looks like it worked, but in reality, nothing has worked here. So what I've done here is I've done a 20 Hertz high pass to try and protect a ported subwoofer if I was to use this with a ported subwoofer system. And as I'm screen recording this, I'm confused because it seems like it didn't really work. I put in a couple typical filters that you would use on a ported sub and a 20 Hertz high pass filter. So you can see me struggling. I'm kind of wondering what's going on. I rerun the measurement to see if maybe something didn't work. So you can see on the left side of the screen that high pass filter, I have it Butterworth, 20 Hertz, 18 dB per octave. This is a pretty common high pass filter setting for a subwoofer with like a 25 Hertz port tuning. So let's try 25 Hertz. Major difference. We clearly have a high pass filter on there at 25 Hertz. You can see the transfer function drops like a rock below 25, 30 Hertz. That's with a boost set at 30. And I tried 20 again and no, something's wrong. So I'm just struggling here. I'm playing around. I'm voiceovering now, but in the moment, I was very confused, especially because the natural high pass of the device kind of looks like there is a high pass. And there we have a 21 hertz high pass filter, and it works. So the 25 and the 21 are working, but the 20 hertz high pass filter is not working. So this is a problem to me because not everybody is going to loop back their DSP box like I have here. There's no reason to think that it wouldn't work, but there's obviously a bug in the software that isn't engaging the high pass filter at 20 hertz. I mean, everything may appear to be working except for this. And the reason why this is a problem more than any other thing in this software is because we use high pass filters on ported subs, horn subs, things like that to protect the driver from over excursion. And 20 hertz isn't even that low to begin with. I think most DIYers would want it lower than that. So let's look at an example. Now this is a box that's tuned to 13 hertz in WinISD, but let's suppose I'm forced to use the 21 hertz high pass filter versus if the software did have the option for, say, a 10, 11, or 12 hertz high pass filter. Well, basically what we have here is the green line without a high pass filter. That's what's actually happening in this DSP box. So you think, wow, great, well, lots of extension. That's what we want. Why would we want the 12 hertz high pass filter? The 21 hertz high pass filter we really don't want. I mean, we're just neutering all of our output below 20 hertz. So if we look at the excursion between these three drivers, you can see the big problem. So both high pass filters adequately protect the driver. The 12 hertz high pass filter obviously does it better with the output. The no high pass filter is a big problem. The excursion rockets above X max. And the thing is you're not getting much output below your port tuning, so you're not even going to hear it. You're just going to hear a bunch of clanking, and that'll be the end of your subwoofer very soon. So that's why this is a problem. The end user can't rely on the 20 hertz high pass filter. To the person who doesn't know, this could be a major issue. Not everybody's going to see this video. Far less are even going to loop back their box, their DSP box. So this is what you get. Okay, now I want to look at who would use this DSP, how would they use it, and then try to do that. I'm going to kind of use my own experience for this, which isn't maybe fair. I'm sure a lot of people have another idea of how they would put this thing to use. But the 4 ins and 8 outs seem very curious to me in that you can run one input channel and then 2 output channels for your subwoofers. And then the remaining 3 inputs and 6 outputs could be used for active speakers in a home theater. Your whole front, left, center, and right could be actively driven. So I wanted to use the software and see just how that would go. Okay, so I'm going to assign channels 1 and 2 to input 1, 3 and 4 to input 2, and so on and so forth. So this will be channels 1 and 2 will be for subwoofers. Channel 3 and 4 will be the high frequencies and low frequencies for my left speaker. Then channel 5 and 6, my center speaker, 7 and 8, my right speaker, and so on. So this allows me to have 2-way active speakers and subwoofers all running off of one $170 box. So that is the first bit of good news in this whole thing, is that that's very functional. That's nice to have. That's why I bought it, and I'm excited about that part. As long as I can get over these other problems. Going along with just kind of a fake little example here, we're going to put some EQ on our subwoofers. Okay, in channel 3, I'm going to make this the tweeter channel. So I'm going to put a high pass filter at about 2200 hertz. And I'll do a little PEQ to it as well. Channel 4 will be my woofer, so we're going to put a low pass filter on the woofer. I'm also going to do a low shelf to compensate for baffle step. A little bit of PEQ to maybe deal with diffraction and breakup. Now notice the graph, the transfer function graph, you can't see below -12. So I've put a 4100 hertz notch filter on the breakup and we can't see it. It'll show up in the measurements, but we can't see it in this software. So that's a limitation, and it's really unfortunate that you can't expand that vertical window. We're going to leave all the channels at the same level for now. We can add a bit of delay. Typically you have to delay your tweeter or your woofer if maybe your tweeter's behind the woofer in a waveguide or something. Okay, now we'll put a cut on the tweeter and see what that does. you can see in the software you can't see the cut. I put minus 6.3 on there, but it shows it at 0. So I don't actually know if this is even working. See, minus 20 still shows it at 0. Up and down, doesn't matter. So I don't know, another strike against it. Okay, so there's our measurements. Now we'll put a minus 3 dB cut. We can't see it in the software, but maybe we can see it in the measurements. Sorry, I didn't use the 6.2. We're going to use 3 for this measurement. And it worked. So it does work. The software doesn't bug out. It does work to level adjust each of the channels, but you just can't see it in the software. So everything on this end of the use case seems to be working as it should. Okay, now I'm going to measure in my room because that's why I bought it. I'm going to just use some random PEQ that I think will work to cut out that 60 hertz spike, and I'll give a little bit of a bump at 20 hertz. I didn't use the low shelf here, I should have, but this is just kind of off the top of my head, not using any measurements or anything. So let's see what happens. Okay, so I did get a bump at 20 hertz like I asked for, about 3 dB, and I did get a cut at 55 hertz. So it did its job as well. There was a couple little things I've noted on there. Like I got a little bit of a bump at 40 hertz, it seems, and there's a little bit of a suck out at about 150 hertz. I don't think these are related to the DSP. It's just measurement to measurement variation or something. Maybe I moved something in the room. The 150 hertz one is quite strong and peculiar, but otherwise it did what I wanted it to do, and I listened to some music and movies and it worked great. Sounds much better. Okay, well that's everything as far as I'm going to take it. That's the testing I have available to me and what I'm going to do with it. I'm sorry for the car audio guys that might use the Bluetooth dongle and different things you can get for this thing. It's just not really what I'm interested in. Ultimately, I'm not totally blown away with the performance. I think the value proposition that I saw online when I first investigated this unit really came down a notch, mostly for my purposes, mostly that low frequency roll off. So who's it for then? Can we salvage this thing? Well, yeah, I think it's probably fairly useful if you want to run active speakers. You could still use it the way I think most people would use it, which would be your left, center, right plus subwoofers. In fact, I'll probably do that. I'll suck it up at least for now and run it that way. You could use it in a system that doesn't need that low frequency ability. So if your subwoofers are tuned to 25 hertz or something like that, no big deal. I think the software is a little bit limiting, but it's not a deal breaker. It's a pain to use. Well, that's not fair. It's easy to use, it's intuitive, but it doesn't feel comfortable to use. So that's limiting, but again, at 170 bucks or 180 bucks or whatever this thing is, it's hard to fault it for too many things like that. At that point, I'm kind of nitpicking. Do I think it's worth buying? That really depends on you. For me, no. I thought about returning it. I think I'll hold on to it for now because for the little money it is, I have it in my possession and I can make it do the things I need to do for the time being. For others, maybe think twice about it. Ultimately, you get what you pay for. It's a nice looking box. It has great functionality for the money, but it has some internal problems you really can't find out without investigating as deep as I did. Overall, I'm not telling you not to buy this thing because, I mean, I'm going to keep it, so that says something. It really depends on what you want to do and your use case scenario. Just maybe buyer beware. I hope this review is helpful, even though it's kind of negative. I hate doing that, but it's the way it is. I really wanted to be excited for this product because I think DSP is way overpriced, and I think Dayton finally delivered consumers a product that's the right price for what you get, even if it, didn't have 300 bands of EQ per channel. I can live with 10 bands of EQ, but unfortunately, we're just not there yet. So maybe in version 2 or something, Dayton can really bring it all the way for us. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. It's really appreciated when people engage, and let me know if I've missed something, if you have any other ideas. Thanks, and see you on the next one.